I just wanted to welcome everybody to the Halloween Party 1982. This is a party co-hosted by Langdon Moss and Paul Sinclair. Langdon, of course...
Well, that's me, 27 years ago, announcing this little Halloween party that Rosie and I hosted, along with our friends Gay and Langdon Moss. Our friend Joby Klotz had a new video camera recorder that he brought over to the party that night. That was the newest technology of the day, but it was big and bulky, so he just stuck it in front of the house and left it there all night. Here's a friend of mine, John Bell, a Notre Dame grad. He worked with me at the Attorney General's office at that time. And now here's another friend of mine coming in, and I'll let a 27 years younger me introduce him.
I just want to recognize, this is actually not my uniform. This is Pat O'Hare's uniform, and Pat did me a hell of a lot of good to borrow this, to loan me this uniform, and I want to thank him.
This is Fred Hinton, a golfing friend of Langdon and me, and his date that night. Surprisingly, they won the Best Costume Award that night as civilians. There's our friend Eileen Powers, dressed as Bambi for the evening. We had a hard time getting Eileen to get up in front of the camera during the evening, as you'll see later on. And that's my friend Carrie Powers, a 1974 classmate of mine at Notre Dame, who introduced Rosie, my wife, and I in 1975. Rosie's carried a grudge against Carrie ever since then. This is our friend Tom Flaherty, dressed as Rocky Balboa. Tom was a lawyer in one of the largest Richmond law firms at the time of this party, and he and his wife Liz used to go on vacation with Langdon and Gay and Rosie and I. Tom and Liz moved to Northern Virginia and divorced about 20 years after this party, though. That's Pam Sweeney, Raggedy Ann number 1 of 3 at the party. I'm not sure why Raggedy Ann was such a popular costume that year, but there's Raggedy Ann number 2, Jane Heil, on the right. Jane Heil then, Jane Riddle now, and they're choreographing a little Supremes number. There's Howard Casway. Howard's from Philadelphia, and he's a big Philadelphia Phillies fan. That's Liz Rupp on the right, and my sister-in-law Tita Donlin with the Pirates bandana on, looking at us right there. In just a second, we're going to see Rudy West with these cool sunglasses on there, and his wife Karen Gould in the Santa hat right next to him. Karen, about 25 years after this party, was elected president of the Virginia State Bar. There's one of my golfing buddies, Lynn Isaacs. We tried to get Lynn to wear a costume, but he refused and just came as himself. Here comes one of my 2 most favorite brothers-in-law, Marty Donlin in lederhosen for the party, and his wife Tita, and then a couple of accountants at the party, Richard Dolan in the cowboy hat, and Steve Holton in the Army uniform there with his wife. And here comes Rosie, dressed as a Halloween black cat, and she's got her "I'd rather be playing tennis than cooking" apron on. She must have been working on something in the kitchen there that night to have that on with her costume. Here comes our co-host Langdon Moss as Inspector Clouseau, with Jency and Caro dressed as Little Orphan Annie, and Langdon's wife Gay there as a cat. And there's Bambi sticking her head in anywhere she can. This is a friend of our trusty cameraman, Joby Klotz. He was the only clown at the party that night, at least the only one dressed as a clown.
Where are you going? This is not a fraternity house.
This is another one of the accountants at the party that night, Robbie Gragnani and his wife Karen. Their son Reed was a great high school baseball player and got drafted by the Boston Red Sox, but Reed elected to go to University of Virginia on a baseball scholarship. He'll probably play pro ball after he's had a year or two of college experience.
Hey, this camera. Was that yours? Quit it.
That's Julie, the first dog Rosie and I had in our married lives. We've had two since then. Lizzie, a bulldog, and now Lucy, a boxer. This was one of the most popular costumes of the night. Our next door neighbor Gordon Archer as a ballerina. That's Debbie Vaughn in her beret, dressed as a French artist. She and her husband Ronnie were friends of ours, but since this party they've moved to Texas. And there's Raggedy Ann #1, Pam Sweeney again, and then Debbie Vaughn dancing with her husband Ronnie, who's dressed as Farmer John, who I think comes into the screen here in just a second. And there's Raggedy Ann #2, Jane Heil. Heil at that time. Jane's remarried since then and is now married to Dan Riddle. And Jane and Dan and Rosie and I spend a lot of time doing fun stuff together. This is Pam Sweeney's husband Mark, dressed as a cowboy with his green bandana and red shirt. I'm not sure what he's doing over here in the corner all by himself, but he seems pretty intent. Oh, I see, he was stealing something. Shame on him. And there's Rosie with Ronnie Vaughn and Debbie dancing. And this is Bill Captain Crunch Carell with his date that night, Carolyn Dewey. Bill was a great tennis player. He played tennis at the University of North Carolina, and since this party he's married. Not Carolyn, but another great gal. And I think I've introduced just about everybody who's shown up on the camera now, so I'm just going to go ahead and let everybody start dancing and dance the video off the screen.